kidding. They're Volkswagen. Volkswagen. They're Volkswagen.
Hey, fun in the sun!
No.
You're going to the island. Yeah!
The most important events of your life, the things everyone says are important at least, are not the moments which take place alone when you maybe have great ideas or experience some transformation that lifts you and affirms the spiritual nature of your soul. No, the most important moments of your life are all crowd experiences. All times you experience something in a crowd, that you participate in a crowd activity. And it's the same for me as well. To motivate the idea of crowds and participation, I have to take a few minutes to walk you through a crowd experience that everyone today has had at one point or another, a flight on a commercial aircraft. So let us say we are going to go and find fun in the sun. We're going on vacation, let's say. So let's step through that flight. So first, long before we book the tickets, and that process involves using an airline online system. In the background of that system are programmers, database people, airline people, financial people, because we use a credit card for the booking. Everybody does. So the banks are involved, tech companies are involved, Microsoft operating system is used on the computers, so they are distantly involved. It's a huge web of people. Finally, the day comes. We pack, we feel excitement and anticipation. We go 3 hours early because we're told to do that due to, expecting big crowds. We drive to the airport, park in a lot filled with cars, not so different from our own. We go and check in with the airline. And already we're interacting with so many people. And we see many more there who are all more or less doing what we are doing. We then make our way to join the queue in order to check in and then pass through security. We have to suffer the ignominy of being reduced to a criminal suspect by being searched. And this is necessary because apparently there are people or groups who want to derail our experience of fun in the sun. It seems we have enemies, and their presence is felt even here, even in the moment when we are with this crowd all going. There is apparently other crowds out there, and they are enemies of ours. So once we finally get past security, we reach the inner sanctum of the airport terminal, and we've passed through a tangible, if invisible, barrier of some kind, and we are now within sight of the huge transports themselves. Those transports are built with millions of interlocking and interconnected parts. They're serviced by armies of engineers, maintenance people, attendants, technicians, and of course government overseers. And we wait in the terminal, and our section, the gate we're sitting at gradually fills with people. More and more people come until we're surrounded with all kinds of people. But we notice that there are some similarities to ourselves. They're all basically wearing shirts that say fun in the sun or something to that effect. They're all doing more or less what we are doing. Then we interact with more staff from the airline. They make sure that we have all the required paperwork, passports are presented. We need to be able to successfully reach the destination and exit the plane, from some legalistic perspective. Finally, we enter the belly of the beast. We're seated, through this very controlled queuing process, which sorts us by graded, class, sort of a first class, second class people, into this packed plane that's filled with all these people. And all of those people are doing more or less exactly what we are doing. They're putting on seatbelts, they're adjusting themselves, getting their gum out to chew during the ascent, talking to their kids, and so on. They have the same general destination, or at least they're going in the same way, because, now it's too late to change. The door to the plane is sealed. It is not possible to exit that plane for many hours. And so they're all united in that sense of being now enclosed, being, willing prisoners within the belly of that whale. And many of the things those people would ordinarily do, things that we would also do, are now prohibited. Our actions on that plane are severely limited. Movement is limited, sources of information are limited, sensory inputs are limited. We have to look at and hear the the same guy that we're sitting next to for 8 hours, you know. So we have to prepare ourselves for that. And now the pilots get ready to leave. You know, they do their job. They press thousands of buttons and controls and checking things in just the right way to make that behemoth move and operate. And the plane taxis down to the runway slowly, interminably queuing on the tarmac amidst so many other planes doing more or less what we are doing. And then finally we feel the sense of acceleration as we hear the engine rev higher. We jolt forward, we feel the pressure of that acceleration on our bodies pushing against us. And we move and we move and we move, and then up, lift, and we're off the ground. And we are on our way to fun in the sun. So that is how we experience going on, at least getting on a commercial airliner. I'm not going to give you the whole trip. That's just the start of the trip, you know. But let's take a moment to think about what was involved in what we just experienced in terms of the division of labor, or what I call the social machine. So not hundreds, but probably thousands of people are involved in what we just did. We do not directly see many of them, but the fact is that they are all there. They're all quite important to the success of that process, or even the possibility of that process. You know, imagine if the TSA is on strike, how long it's going to take to get through security. Or imagine if the airline is having a problem with the plane, there's some obscure maintenance aspect to be looked after, and we never hear about any of that. You know, there's all this drama going on in the background. We have no idea at all. So imagine if there's, you know, not enough fuel for the plane, and there's some delay, but we would never know about that delay. I mean, we would never know why that delay happened. You know, we would experience the delay, but we would not be given much information about the delay. And so large parts of this process are closed to us. We don't know much about the web. It's kind of dark. You know, we get little bits of it. So our entire trip is predicated on, you know, not 100 or 1,000, but hundreds of thousands of actions and tasks and requirements which have to be performed in order for the complex mechanism we call commercial air travel to be possible. So you're saying, okay, Dave, that's an extreme example. But in reality, you know, I think almost everything we do today, the way that we live, has elements of this social design built into it. The social machine, the interdependency, the division of labor, the extreme division of labor. So let's make a list of elements that, you know, I think are easy to observe. So number one is the extreme dependency of a process which uses thousands of predicates. You know, people are performing very discrete and disconnected, but nevertheless essential tasks. If any of those tasks are not implemented, or they're done poorly or incorrectly, it's going to affect the outcome. Number two is the fact that the entire process is experienced, you know, in theory with a customer focus. I mean, that's what I'm told. But it's actually a crowd experience. You know, next to a rock concert or a football game, commercial air transport is one of the most dense crowd experiences that I can come up with. And we are made to believe, or at least, you know, we would like to convince ourselves that this is our vacation, this is our trip. But in reality, you know, it's like a sausage factory. We and all the other people are squeezed into the tube, compressed, and then squirted out the other end. You know, in a very ignominious sort of fashion, you know, customer focus, you know, my ass, you know. So the entire, number three is that the entire process can be described as, you know, as I say, as a social machine, because it has many of the characteristics of machines. It has a regularity about it, a timed nature to it, a clockwork kind of nature to it. It is many mechanical parts and aspects. And people are treated as parts and expected to function in certain predictable ways, just like mechanical parts. Number four is that the social machine is lubricated with money. Money is something I've explained elsewhere. It's not wealth. You know, I'm talking about fiat currency. Fiat currency is not wealth, but actually it is a tool used to enhance a specific human capability, which in this case is the capability to trade one thing for another. Obviously you could do that without fiat currency, but we do it with the help of fiat currency because it increases our capabilities. So that capability involves the quantification of human needs and desires, and also the trick of believing or convincing ourselves that one thing is worth more than another. In order to participate in a transaction, we have to believe that what we want, say a trip to have fun in the sun, is worth as much as or more than what is with us now, which is some quantity of money that we had earned or acquired and will lose, never to be seen again when we buy those tickets. So if that does not happen, if we do not believe it and cannot convince ourselves of it, then we simply do not make that transaction, and the entire social machine goes without our participation. It goes silent, in a sense. Now, you might ask what motivates that social machine. The answer is that without our participation, then the entire complex chain, it just stops. And so because that chain is based on a crowd, it's not really dependent on us. So the complexity is that this is a crowd experience. That entire complex social machine is based on crowds, not individuals. And that's why our existence as an individual is completely unimportant to that social machine. Every customer who does not join that crowd, who does not accept that crowd experience as something worth trading for, that's one less transaction. So it adds up in a collective sense. It does impact the entire web, the entire fabric. But ultimately, it's not about individuals. It's about crowds. And so this is why these webs, these social machines, can be said to have motivations or collective desires. Those desires are diluted, they're distributed desires, but they are desires nonetheless, and they are crowds working with other crowds. That is the essence of the social machine. It's not about individuals anymore. It's not about individuals at all. And the notion of individuality, for us in some social sense, that is an illusion. If you like this kind of story signal, please support me by subscribing to my channel. Thanks.